Thank you very much for a nice introduction. Honorable Chair, Father Tommy, he is there, Father Paul, the Rector, Vice Principal here, all the delegates who have come for such an important conference, international conference on tea. I don't know why I am here, but there are many reasons why I am here. I am a son of Darjeeling, so I am fond of drinking Darjeeling tea. I grew seeing how Darjeeling tea is cultivated, marketed, and then I think I am here because tea is grown in a certain environment, and especially Darjeeling tea grows in the mountain environment, mostly. So in that context, we should understand and know the environment of mountains. So maybe because of that, I am here. So I decided to talk on bioeconomy because tea is an economy which is natural. It's a nature-based solution. It's coming from the nature. So it's a bioproduct, so it's a bioeconomy. I thought, what are the potentials of bioeconomy? What are the threats that we are seeing already in this Himalayan region? So with that context, I thought bioeconomy is very relevant for resilience and well-being of the mountain people, but also a large population which are dependent on mountain. So let me start with the importance of mountain, then come with the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, what's happening here, then I'll talk about certain environmental concerns, and then see what are the bioeconomy potentials for the mountains. So to begin with, this is a very interesting slide. So, and as you were hearing, when I was asked to, I was actually advocating at the global stage why mountains should receive more attention. Mountains are really neglected. They don't get any attention, not investment, if you see globally. So I was at various forums in UN, everywhere I was talking, and with, of course, a group of us who were working in the institutions about the importance of mountains. So mountains are home for 1 billion people. So we have 8 billion people now, so 1/8 live in the mountains. Nearly 50% of the population of this planet Earth are dependent on the global goods and services from the mountains. And if we look at the land surface area, mountains occupy only 22%. But very importantly, 50% of global biodiversity hotspots are in the mountains. There are 36 global hotspots. So 50% of them are in the mountains. And most importantly, 20 plant species provide most of the food security, 80%. And in that, 6 of the plants have actually originated in mountains. So you can imagine how important the mountains are. So, but let's come to our region. So that is global. And when we come to our region, we are somewhere here, Darjeeling, here. And this is Hindu Kush Himalayan region, also known as third pole. Why third pole? Apart from 2 poles, the most frozen water, fresh water, is found in this region. That's why it's called third pole. And apart from 2 poles, and very importantly, this region, if you look at, it's really a global asset. The biodiversity I already mentioned, but the food which is produced here, the water already mentioned, and you can see the cultural diversity of people in these mountains. Nearly 1,000 living languages are still here in these mountains. Just think of Darjeeling area, hills. How many languages are there? But 70% of them are likely to disappear. The risk is that high based on our assessment. So this is an area, but let me also explain. That is Hindu Kush, that is in Afghanistan, Karakoram, Pamir. And then comes the Tibetan plateau, the upper part, and this is the Himalaya. And you can see, even in Myanmar, some glaciers. Very few people know. So we actually found, and then Myanmar, northern Myanmar has glaciers, which is connected to Arunachal Pradesh and China. So you can see this is the beautiful. Actually, 10 major rivers originate from here. 10 major rivers. 250 million people live in the mountains, which I am mentioning. And 2 billion people are downstreams. You can see Indus, Ganga, Brahmaputra, all these rivers. So large population, and this is the most irrigated region in the world. Most irrigated region in the world. Food that is produced in the basins of these 10 rivers caters to 3 to 4 billion, half of humanity. So food security, if something happens to Himalaya, then half of humanity is directly impacted in terms of food security. So bioeconomy of the Himalaya is critical for the survival of half of humanity, and I would say even the planet Earth in a larger sense. So we are in India, we are in Darjeeling. Let's talk about the India part of the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. So you can see the dark green is the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. The light greens are river basins where the people are staying. So when we zoom down and try to see the India part here, so we have this different state. Start with the biodiversity, because we are going to talk about bioeconomy. Lots of our economy is based on nature, is based on bioresources. So green economy or nature-based economy, whenever we say it's bioeconomy. So if we look at this, the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, again, 4 global hotspots out of 36. When we say hotspots, it's very rich, but it is at a stretch also, and there are threats, anthropogenic threats. That's why it's both important but also risk. So Himalaya, Indo-Burman mountains of southwest China, and you can see mountains of Central Asia. So here, lots of species, especially this part with 3 hotspots are meeting, speciation is happening, evolution is happening, new species are coming, lots of new species are coming. So if we are not going to use that species for bioeconomy, for medical, for any purposes, I think that is not going to help, because outside world may not know about those species. But if it is lost from here, it's lost from the planet Earth. And the threat is, if we compare this from 15th century, we have already lost 70 to 80% of biodiversity in this region. That means we are working with 20 to 30% of biodiversity. In that also our assessment, we have done 350 scientists from 2019 to 2015 to 2019, over 5 years, we have done this assessment. So you can see many of these are found. So in terms of numbers, you can see Himalaya, Indo-Burman. Let's see only these 2 because they are part of the India part. In the parentheses are endemic. So almost 30% of plant species in the Indian Himalayan is endemic, found only in this region. And then in Indo-Burman you see 50%. So like that, if you look amphibians, fresh waters, same situation. So it's very rich in endemic. That means globally this region have to have a special attention and have to have a good conservation. When I say conservation, it's not just protection, it's also wise use. I think we have to have very clear, if you don't use a resource, it's not good. Resources are there for use, but wise use. Now let's go to another topic. Before we go to bioeconomy, is climate change. Climate change is happening, and in Paris, when we were negotiating, I was trying to bring the mountain perspective in Paris very much when this was signed in the climate summit in 2015. There it was agreed 1.5 degree world we would like to have by 2100. Means by the end of this century, if the temperature is rising, let's try to keep it at that level. And many initiatives are there. Even India, you can see we are talking about green hydrogen, solar, all those alternative energies are being promoted. But what is the situation? In 2024-23, we did another assessment and we found we are not able to control this 1.5. It is going to reach by 2030, 70 years in advance. But now let me come to the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. 1.5 degree in 2015 was already too hot for us. It was 2.1 degree equivalent, because mountains, as the temperature is amplified along the elevation. See, elevation dependent warming happens. As you go higher, the temperature rise is higher, and that's why glacier melting is taking place. So you have seen the glaciers are being lost. So those people who are next to the mountains, glaciers, they are really suffering. And for them, if we want to really develop economy for the people who are next to the glaciers, then we have to really see Ladakh. You can see how the situation is. In that context, what are the opportunities for them? You have seen in Tista, the glacier burst, glacial lake outburst. I am not talking about disaster today, otherwise I would have talked about that. So in 2023 October, when this happened, so huge bioeconomy impact. The hydropower itself was gone. So many people died. The floods came, the agriculture loss. See, these are all related. So disaster is also important. One is not having the resource. Other one is to have big impact by disaster. So we have to see mountains have to have a very good development approach. Now, I talked about the food security, lots of food production. So let's just look at three basins: Indus, Ganga and Brahmaputra. These are relevant and these are part of India, all these three. Then if you look at Indus, almost 85% to 90% of their water for irrigation is coming from glacier melt. So glacier melt, and very little from mountain watersheds, and very little from groundwater. So if we have to do bioeconomy development, then we have to in this region to have a good mechanism to optimize the use and efficiency of the glacier melt. So this is very important. The next, if we look at Ganga, as we come towards this side, in Ganga, only 10% of water is coming from glacier melt. And actually the most of the water is coming from mountain watersheds. So Darjeeling is a mountain watershed. Tea is a mountain watershed. How much water we are conserving, we are storing, is going to be very, very critical for the food security, not only from tea, but in terms of downstream agriculture. So it's very, very important. And then groundwater. When you go to Brahmaputra, see, many of you must be hearing about, oh, China is constructing so much of dams that side. So actually we are depending in Brahmaputra only 15 to 18% from glacier melt. And if the dam is causing us problem, it is not going to cause problem, because most of our water is coming from mountain watersheds in Arunachal Pradesh, Bhutan and other parts of North India. What is the danger is if the disaster happens, then there will be a huge impact in India side, but not in terms of water scarcity. So we have to manage our water in our mountain watersheds in Brahmaputra. So that means we are part of Brahmaputra. Trista enters into thing if we want to really have good bioeconomy developed in the region. Impact of climate change. If you look at this very clearly, by 2100, see, when it becomes black, already 15% of yield of rice yield is going to be decreased. So I said 4 billion people, 3 to 4 billion people are impacted. So by 2100 you can see most of the Ganga and Brahmaputra basin, we are going to lose 15% of crop production. That means huge impact in the food security is going to happen. So that means again bioeconomy loss for the region. So need to really see. Many of us talk about the mountain watersheds, and in that, see, this is example of Uttarakhand, and this is the oak forest. 1 degree rise from there, 1 degree rise in temperature, and I said 1.5 degree is too hot, 2.1, and in some places it is up to 5 degree rise by 2100. So in that situation, how much oak forests are being lost? When I say oak, all medicinal plants, all biodiversity, birds, butterflies, mammals, all biodiversity are also going to be lost. So the entire capacity of any landscape to give you bioeconomy is going to be lost. So that is a very huge impact. So in that context, what should we do? It's restoration of multifunctional landscape, where socio-ecological considerations have to happen to really have a sustained bioeconomy. So in that, one of the initiatives with Conservation International Global and Ashoka Trust right now, and many other partners from Bhutan, from India, TERI, ATRI, and from Bangladesh, we are working in this basin called Mountains to Mangroves. Himalaya to ocean also, you can say, H2O, water connects. So this is what where we are connecting, and what is the effort? The problem is urgent, as I mentioned, and we have aim of 1 million hectares of land we would like to really have restore or protect, and then almost 1 billion trees have to be there in this 1 million hectare, and then about 1 billion people are going to be benefited in that small area. So this is the target, this is the way we are working, and we have started this program for last 2 years, and very well it's progressing. Some of the slides I can show. So here you can see this is the Kanchenjunga landscape. Those yellow ones are corridors. In the corridors, we are trying to really have the restored forest very much. I will show you the corridors later also. So one is really restoration on the ground. When I say restoration, it's not planting trees alone. It's 9 years of work. Also integrating many non-timber forest products in those restored area, community ownership, how we develop, and developing community nurseries and getting this local species, not bringing something from outside. It has to be native, which is tested for generations and which has evolved here. So that is the approach which we are following. Now let me show you Kanchenjunga landscape, how it looks. We are sitting here very nearby Corridor 2, between Corridor 1 and Corridor 2, which I am showing. Singalela National Park, Sinchel Wildlife Sanctuary is here only. So we are just below Sinchel Wildlife Sanctuary. Then there is Mahananda Wildlife Sanctuary. So all these are connections. Then Neura Valley. So what we are trying to do is, there is so much of forest protected areas, but those gaps, corridors are not connecting. There are 16 protected areas in India part of Kanchenjunga landscape. And they are not connected. That means we cannot have optimized ecosystem services if they are not remains fragmented. Tea is also helping this, because tea has forest. Tea has a good corridor activity where you see elephants, they move through tree gardens. They also provide opportunity. So tea is part of this bigger picture in the corridor very much. So this is Kanchenjunga is shared by Bhutan, India and Nepal, and 56% is India part, 14,000 square kilometers. And in this landscape and down below, 7 million people live. So you can imagine it's not a small population. So what we do here in the mountains has huge impact in this landscape. So what do you mean by a multifunctional landscape? So people and wildlife, they are using same space. And you can see here in this picture with a camera trap from our site in Sitong, just the other side. And you can see how the same space trying to get. Now you see Munjak, some other type of the day, and now you see wild boar in the same place, and now you see the black cat, leopard, and the people are again there back bringing their fodder, firewood, and you see the Munjak. So this is what is a shared space, and because of development this shared space is totally disrupted. And we have to get this shared space back, and this shared space can come back if those corridors are put into place. Otherwise there will be conflicts between wildlife and human being. We don't want conflict, we want coexistence so that the ecosystem services are provided. Now the last part of my presentation is inclusive bioeconomy. So what are the potentials? Nature positive. Our chairman said such a wonderful mist is positive. It's really positive. I think in tea industry, I think some people talk about good tea, best fragrance you have when there is really a garden where there is a lot of mist. I hear like that. So there is definitely a positive attribution to anything that you have in this. So when we talk of bioeconomy, so in India, we already have a policy. Department of Biotechnology, Government of India has, and then you have many iterations. The problem of such a policy is that they are not mountain favorable. Means they have not looked into the mountain perspective very much. There are mountain specificities which you cannot really do if you have a general policy. For instance, in Siliguri, if I get in 900 rupees, in my village in St. Mary's, it's the same cost, but by the time it comes to my house, it is 1100. I pay more, but I protect so much of forest. There is no incentives, so the policy has to change. See, same pricing here and there will not work. We are protecting mountains. So we have to see in these policies how mountain specificities have to be taken into consideration. So let's look at the potentialities. So mountains have high agricultural diversity and niche products. We have lost. Now many people are going to all these departmental stores and are getting buckwheats, and they are getting all mountain products. Slowly the food value of those are being realized. So let's see what are those high value mountain products. You know, this is Yarsa Gomba. Yarsa Gomba is Cordyceps sinensis. So when I was working in 2004, when I was crossing Hong Kong market, I found this was at that time $40,000 per 1 kilogram. The same year I was traveling in Sangrila, that is Zhongdian in Yunnan of China, and going to Dichen. So there I came a place, Pass, where Chinese were collecting this Yarsa Gomba. And at that place also, one piece, it was $5. So you can imagine how valuable things are there. And we do get this in Sikkim, but it's not exploited. But in Dharchula, in Uttarakhand, this is being exploited very much. So there are many such resources, and tea is of course one we have to take care. Another one is we have huge potentials in mountains, agroforestry. To have good bioeconomy means have forest and crop. So cardamom, last cardamom was an excellent example. Cash crop, high value, low volume, but low input, not labor intensive. You can see not nutrient exhaustive because it was grown in marginal lands, and then non-perishable. Once you dry, you can keep it for very long. Exactly the type of niche that mountain products should have. We have to store it for several months when there is landslides and like that. So we need to, you cannot have perishable products. We need to really see this cardamom fulfills the mountain specificity which I mentioned earlier. But climate change has impact. But now we have to see and adapt to that change very much. One way, cardamom was dying, lots of diseases, but there we have to see an answer. What is that answer in the context of climate change is diversification. How diversify? So you can see, last cardamom, then it was combined with kiwi, because it needed shade tree. So you get now income from both. Then you have honeybees, does pollination but also give honeys. Then have a spice garden. Have a homestay, so the tourists come, they pay for the homestay also, and then tourism. Diversify, value add. So this is what we have to. Diversification is the answer for resilience for mountain people and mountain curves. Now here you will see a situation. So bioeconomy, companies to community entrepreneurship, which is what I am seeing here. This is not something I am advocating, but even Darjeeling you can see Rinpocha, which is more community, directly individual sold leaves. So there are many such things coming up, individual gardens also, but there are companies. So there is a shift that I am seeing from company to community owned, and shift from labor to ownership for equity premium prices. I think we have to see the models which is viable. So in the company, what has happened, people have remained laborers for generations, more than 100 years. So what are the opportunities for them? What are the diversification within being companies? So I'm just trying to say they have to have alternatives. I see some diversification is ecotourism. If the local people are also given some share in ecotourism within the garden system, I think then there is a possibility. So I'm just throwing an idea here because I see this is what is happening in last 1 year. I am seeing here, 2 years I am living here and seeing. Another good potential to combine opportunity. This is not very far from here, Father. This is Lat Panchar. So lots of people come here for this rufous neck hornbill. And you can see nature can be protected. These birds can be protected just by shooting. Not by the gun, by the camera, for their hobbies, and lots of people come. These people come and shoot there and they stay in homestays. So local economy with nature. So what we did, we trained some of the local people and they started putting very nice shades for camera. And some of the households, they had very nice shades, natural, with the trees, and the visitors, bird watchers, they were given those options in those, and then they were able to really click nice pictures. And one family in a season got up to 70,000 Indian rupees in a village in Lat Panchar. That means good economy, bioeconomy is possible without destructing any resource. So I really see this is a huge entrepreneurship, very close to the nature, also protecting the nature. So enterprise, nature and bioeconomy is the greatest potential. Raja, you have just missed lots of my thought, but I will give you the conclusion.
Anytime, Eklavya, anytime.
Okay, so the integrated approach which is required for sustainable solution. I think this is a very fundamental. All of you, please bear with me for next 5 minutes. This is the most important experience of my life. So here, we have to have an integrated approach for sustainability. So research is very, very important. And researchers bring lots of information, knowledge which needs to be put into practice. But research has to be put into use. This is number one. Number two, the research needs to also have informed policy. In that think tanking, researchers and policy makers have to discuss and talk very much. and that will see that what actually is happening can be put into policy, and if the policy is made and if it goes properly to the grassroots and community, then only it will make a lot of sense for community action. But all of these requires definitely the practice part, which is the most critical part, where policy and good practices are implemented on the ground. They don't remain in the offices and researchers' place. So for that reason, I think these three very important actors have to work together in an integrated manner for sustainable solution. Now I will tell you and show you. I have shown you a space where you have seen the muntjac, wild boar, leopard, and human being. In the same camera trap, I have shown you how to create such a situation. I will start with a very sad story of Nepal. I was there in Isimod, and then I was also working there. So this is a forest. This was the situation, degraded forest situation from 1970 onwards in Nepal. All middle hills of forest of Nepal were totally degraded. And then there was a huge cry, because there was a book written by two very great environmentalist ecologist. I will show that later on. They raised a voice so much, that book, the Nepal government was really scared. What will happen to Nepal? What they say? Himalayan dilemma, the book's name. And they said Himalaya will disappear, totally degraded and disappear very soon, the way the middle hills of Nepal has been degraded. So that is what you can remove that. You can. That's mine. So that is what was the situation, and you can look at this. This is a totally degraded forest, and it was 1987. So in Nepal, the government made a big change in their working plan. They said we cannot just see the deforestation happening, we have to restore the forest. Then many institutions like Isimod, like IUCN, like development projects from Swiss government, from German government, all those came to Nepal, and then research institution came with which species, what type of species, how to really grow them. So they came with that. And then finally, the package for a good community forestry was developed. Government, you can see how that forest has been converted. You see such a bad forest. There was no coexistence of the slide which I showed of animals and people in this situation. Everything was degraded. But in 20 years, the entire the middle hills of Nepal was converted this. Here you can see coexistence, you can see clean water, you can see all biodiversity what I was showing. So the life really changes. This is what. But here, the researchers, they came with all those practices like Isimod. The policy was government devolved power to the communities. The community institution called forest user groups were formed. Community forest user groups were formed. Their federation, FECOFON, was formed. More than 17,000 forest user groups are existing in Nepal. And you can see such a degraded forest has been converted into such a healthy forest, which I was talking. And it's not just the forest, it's all forms of land adjoining to this. Everything becomes green like this. We want to see Himalaya as green like this. Even we want to see our most of those corridor areas which I showed you in Darjeeling to be green as this. But people like Raja would say, Eklavya, you must have done this in a small patch of valley. He might say, then I have to come up with some proof to tell him that no, it's not a small patch. See, you can see this map. Now I'll tell the name of the book, Himalayan Dilemma, written by Jack D. Ives and Professor Bruno Messerli, with whom I had the pleasure of working. together so many years later on, but that was they wrote in 1989 this book. And restoration and revival of middle hills of forest, you can Nepal. Now you will believe, you see the first slide, that is 1992. So much of grayish area. So they were the degraded areas. And you see down below 2016, and you see so much of green forest have come back. So it's not a patch of forest, it's not a small gorge, but it's really the entire middle hills of Nepal. This is the success. So when we talk about any intervention, implementation, or change, paradigm thinking, it's the scale that matters. We can do in small villages, fine, but that is a toad's approach. A small pond is there, so that in the toad will think about that pond only, but we have to have many toads, examples, success, and then we should have an eagle's view. So what I showed you in that small river was a toad's view, and this is what is the eagle's view. And this is how you can make really an impact at scale, only if we work in a larger scale. So for the Indian Himalayan region, for the Himalayan region, and for the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, I think if all of us join our hands and we work, we will certainly have a good bioeconomy in which tea is one very important one, for which all of us have come together here. So finally, my last slide, if we want to see this Hindu Kush Himalayan region and Indian Himalayan region's future, then it's not only top-down thinking, it is also bottom-up. So bottom-up approach, top-down with investment from global and from the national level. If we work together, then certainly the path will be prosperous in the Kush Himalayan region. But if we don't do at all, we will go downhill. Everything will be further degraded, and we'll have a very bad situation. But if we do a small conference, some projects, few people just have interest, we will do better, but we will muddle through and go. Right now, our stage is muddling. We are not really cooperating for prosperous IHR or Hindu Kush Himalayan region. With this, I would like to thank you all. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you.
It's a very stirring and uplifting talk as usual, Eklavya. What I want to ask you is, you've been involved with Agenda 21, and we've done certain work together on that score. Agenda 2030 is just an extension of that. 10 years have gone, 11 years. If you look at the UN portal, in spite of very serious commitment by all 193 governments to fulfill it, we've only 17%.
Okay. I think what is happening now is something, example what went wrong. See the Middle East. If we want to really achieve Agenda 21, then suddenly the things which is happening in Ukraine or Middle East should not happen. I think our priority is for power, not for sustainability. I think that is the wrong. The priority has changed. In Agenda 21 time, US was totally in. Climate change 2015 Paris, when we were totally US was in. But now all of a sudden it's not in. See, we create multilateral organizations, UN. What is the role of UN? I spent so much of time in, not in UN, but in UN agendas, bringing mountain agendas. But see, when such wars are happening, where is the Security Council? In this particular war or Ukraine war, has there been any role of UN? I think there we are lacking. It's really a global mess, in my opinion, that multilateralism and global agreements are not in the priorities of some of the most powerful countries of this world. I am at least happy India is respecting them. Our energy movement is shifting from this dirty energy to clean energy. So lots of investment allocation in terms of green hydrogen, in terms of solar, in terms of all innovations which can come not from the traditional energy source of, or I would say, oil-based or coal-based sources are given top priority in India. But we are such a big population. We have so much energy requirements. 500 gigawatts, if you really see our potential in the Himalayan region. But our investments are also in not that direction. Small is beautiful. I would like to see all our hydro projects in mountains small, not as big as they are happening. See right now how big cascading impacts they are having. If run of the river, small hydro projects would have been there, we would have been much safer. So the vision of moving forward in a sustainable way and in the context of us, sustainable mountain way is not getting top priority. Even though we make lots of voice, I have been making, it's 45 years that I have been researching and talking at different, I used to talk at a very small level earlier, and you have seen then I went to a different level, at the highest level in the world also, talking about these issues. But all these issues receive less because the power game is something which is snatching the value of life, value of sustainability. It's more on power game. I think that's what I can say at this moment. As an individual, it's very not much to say, Raja.
Thank you.
Due to time constraint, we'll just take one question.
Hi, this is just to pick up from Rajaji's question. I think, I wonder whether it's, you talked about the global power, the power of countries, and in making war as one element of why these sustainability goals have not been achieved. I just wanted to point out, does anybody know who the largest owner of agricultural land in the United States is? Does anybody have an idea? You would know his name. His name is Bill Gates. He owns 275,000 acres. I may have that wrong, but he's the largest owner of agricultural land, and he's acquired it mainly through his nonprofit foundation, which is not a charity. The Gates Foundation, by the way, is not a charity.
Excellent.
So why has he acquired so much land? The answer is fast becoming data centers, okay? Albany, Ohio is a place where there was a lot of farmland, and farmers were offered 10% above market value I'll get to the question, to sell their farmland so that this could again be sold to tech companies for. So I had noticed that you chronicled the. So how much are you concerned that in our effort to advance technologically, that we are moving away from the land and biodiversity?
Yeah, it's the issue that needs, I said, no eagle's view. Where we have to invest, that has to be really logically planned, which is not done. So those hotspot areas, biodiversity where we would like to have them. We should not really bring big technologies like big hydroparks. If you go to Arunachal Pradesh now, this big dam is coming. It's going to have a huge land impact because it will be submerged. Many hot pot areas, small areas will be lost. And because of endemism, many endemic species might be lost. So the whole issue is to prioritize where you want to invest, where you have to have a technological development, where you have to have infrastructure development. I think that visioning has to happen. So for instance, in India, the first thing that India government has to do is Niti Aayog. If they are there, they have to do this job first, where we can bring infrastructure development or where we cannot. So that exercise has to happen very much. We have to have prioritization where we have declared hotspots. So you in southern India, your Western Ghats is a hotspot. Have these hotspots. In hotspots, when you do big infrastructure development, it has to be totally environmental sensitive, biodiversity sensitive. We have to see. I think that is where we are missing very much. That is what I feel. I think there is a time problem here. Thank you very much.